Welcome to episode 4 of Lebanon Legends podcast. This week's guest is former Cedar and NFL star Jared Odrick.
Hello and welcome to Lebanon Legends, the show that talks with Lebanon County legends from its rich history of sports. I'm your host, Manny Martinez, and today's episode we will discuss the career of one of our most famous Lebanon County and Lebanon High grads, our guest Jared Odrick. We'll discuss the ins and outs of his sports career and what he does with his time now. Thank you for coming in today, Jared.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. So, I'll go right. So, can you talk to us about your high school career and what made you want to play football?
Wow, yeah. High school career and what made me want to play football? Yeah. Well, I was always a competitive kid. I started playing local sports when I was, I think the first local sport I was playing was Dairy Queen baseball. I played Dairy Queen baseball, and I actually, my mom signed me up late, or I was late to sign-ups, and then I remember showing up to their first or second practice when the teams were already chosen. Yeah. And she kind of dragged me along and said, "Hey, this kid needs to be doing something." and the coach was like, "This kid's too old," and showed them my birth certificate, and I was larger than a lot of the other kids, and they're like, "All right, well, we got to find a way to make this work," even though he came past the deadline. So I started playing a lot of local sports since I was like 6 here in Lebanon, and so then eventually it got to football with Coach Giovino. I played Lebanon Cowboys football, and then I got too big for my age group. So by the time I played when I was 7 and 8, by the time I was 9, by the time I was 8, I would have had to play with the 12 and 13-year-olds. And my mom said, "No, they all have mustaches. My kid is big, but he is not 12 or, hitting puberty. He's nowhere near puberty." So then Giovino came in probably around my middle school year, or my last year of middle school in 8th grade, and he was the head varsity coach, and he came down to visit me in the middle school, and he said, "Hey, you're going to be playing varsity next year." And at that time, I was very scared because there was guys like Missile Lopez and Chad Thierwechter that I heard all about. That they were these big, strong, mean guys, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. So, and that's where it took off.
Yeah. Was Dairy Queen baseball, was that in Lebanon or was that somewhere else?
You said Dairy Queen?
Yeah, isn't that what you said?
Yeah, Dairy Queen was in Lebanon. Yeah. So that was a team. I'm not sure if they still have a baseball team. Do you know?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so, but they have like a bunch of like local teams that have other sponsors.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. When did you stop playing baseball? Like what age?
Soon as Mike Sholly was throwing 90 miles per hour, I was like, "This ain't for me." That was probably I think I was in 8th or 9th grade. 8th grade. Yeah, as soon as Mike Sholly was a local pitcher here, and he was throwing he had like a 90 mile per hour fastball. I think he had the fastest pitch in the county at like 14, and I was just like, this ain't for me. I think I'm gonna start to focus in on football, basketball, and other things. Yeah.
So when you got to high school, were you did you adapt quick, or did it take a while for you to adapt to the high school experience or your high school?
In terms of sports, in terms of football. I think I adapted quick because I think a part of what ended up happening as a part of my development was that I was a larger kid, right? And because I was larger, I always ended up playing up, or people thought that I was older at least. And then I think that helped me throughout my childhood. Was I was always playing up. So Coach Blackburn was a basketball coach here, and when I was in like 7th and 8th grade, he would have me come up and play with the high school team in summer practice and summer basketball leagues. And so, Franklin, what was the name of the dude who was? See, this is in a podcast, you got your producers and your researchers off camera, right? What was the name of the dude that? Andy. Was it Andy? Andy. Big Andy. And he was a transfer student. Yeah. And so I remember playing with him, and I was in like 8th grade or something like that. And I remember Howard Murray, and a few other older guys that I was like playing up with. And so, I got accustomed to playing with older guys from a young age.
Yeah.
So I think I transitioned pretty quickly and well.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any point in your high school career that you knew you were going to go somewhere with your talent?
Any point in my high school career?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Well, things kind of happened pretty quickly. My ninth grade year. So it happened when, like, I was shocked myself. My ninth grade year. It was after my freshman year of football. The Miami Hurricanes had just won a national championship recently, and one of their football coaches walked in the building, and he went straight to Coach Giovino's office and spoke with him. And when they came to visit and say, hey, I don't think anybody's going to get in trouble now with the NIL, but at that time it was illegal for a coach to come in and speak to a freshman.
Yeah, definitely.
And I was surprised that they were even here to see me. But how that happened was from all the hard work that Coach Giovino put in for trying to get Adam Brossman and David Trone, who were football players that were 2 years older than me, recruited.
Yeah.
And so they were a running back and quarterback duo. And so he sent a lot of tapes out all over the country to get them recruited because they were very good players. But, this area sometimes at that point was getting overlooked. The talent was getting overlooked. And so he's putting out actual VHS tapes, if you guys know what those are.
Yeah.
And he was sending them to schools, and he would add a note in that mail package, that number 70, that's my number that my freshman year, is just a freshman. So when that happened, I started getting a lot of attention from those universities because I was bigger on camera or on the tape or whatever, and I was young. And so I started getting recruited just because of how much Coach Giovino was helping Adam Brossman and David Trone get recruited. So at that point, I was like, oh, coaches started coming in. I started getting letters, and I was like, maybe I could do something here.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So, what made you choose Penn State for college?
What came down the relationship that I built with one of the coaches there, who was going to be my position coach, Larry Johnson. Larry Johnson Sr. Is probably considered the best defensive line coach in the nation in terms of NCAA football. And he's a great motivator. And he came to visit me in the school. So, funny enough, I built like half of the staff here at the school. I kind of had a love-hate relationship because there was a bunch of, teachers that would see that I would always be pulled out of class to talk to these coaches that would come to the school. And so some teachers really didn't like that, and some were like, "Oh, that's kind of cool," And then, and so what ended up happening is that he came into the school, click clack in his nice shoes and his suit, on the linoleum floor, and he came in with a plan. He had a plan for me. He told me what I was going to do my freshman year. He told me what I was going to do my sophomore year, my junior year, senior year, and he laid out my career. And I had never had a coach or a man come into my life and lay out the vision that he had for me. That I guess I lie. I just told the story about Giovino doing the same thing, but in a different regard, where he came in with a plan, and I was impressed. Coach Giovino was impressed, but it came down to the relationship that I built with Coach Jay.
Yeah. So like basically your freshman year, you had like your entire high school and college career set out from that point, right?
I wouldn't say I had it set out, no, because I didn't receive any scholarships until my junior year of high school. So I got my first scholarship from the University of Iowa, and they were my first offer. They wanted me to play offensive line. And at that time, I was like, I guess I'm going to go. You get your first offer, and you don't think any more are coming. It's like, I guess I'm going there, right? And then UConn offered, and then Maryland offered, and then Penn State offered, and then it trickled into over 70 schools offering me in my career. So my freshman year was just like people coming in to, poke and prod at me to say if this kid is real or if he has any muscle on him, or is he some big fat kid.
So you didn't like send any tapes to the schools? It came to you like during your games and stuff like that?
It all initiated with those tapes, right, that were sent out, right? And it was initiated with that, and then I got a bunch of questionnaires. This is before, the internet was up and running so fast, Do you guys know what dial-up is?
No.
No, I have no idea.
Yeah, don't worry about it. I got a bunch of questionnaires, and Frank knows about this. He got sent questionnaires where you'd have to fill out all these information from schools, and they just want to find basic information, from you. So, it's like your height, your weight, your interests, your parents, all these different kind of random questions. And so it started with that. What was your original question? Sorry.
About if you went to the coaches and stuff like that, or did you?
Oh, no. I mean, at some point, I went to one or two camps. There were Nike camps that Nike hosted up at Penn State, and they would host different spots throughout the country where they would make it a Nike-sponsored camp. And at the time, that was really big to go there and show your face, because there'd be people from all over the region that you could compete against in drills. And that's where you got to see your talent, or coaches got to see your talent up against regional talent, not just local.
Yeah.
And how was that competition at the camps? Way different from high school competition, or kind of the same?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was similar to how club is, with basketball and like AAU, right? And and that's always a contentious thing. That's always like a hot topic, because high school sports can sometimes end up suffering from their best athletes going on and going and playing some club sport.
Definitely.
And that was kind of around that time where I started discovering that those meets, or those times that you were offered to to go around regional talent, was a great opportunity to get in front of those coaches. But the talent level and the competition was like a full speed game with no pads. And so I think anybody who had hesitations about going full speed with no pads didn't perform well. And so I just had a mindset, my whole, childhood and also teenage years, that I wasn't going to let anybody show me up at any point if I was on the field or even on the court. Even when Franklin came to town, I think it was one of the best things in my career, right? Because it was like, here's another big guy coming to play basketball. And it's like, I thought I was going to be the big guy, right? And here he comes, with skill, with attitude, with size. And it was I think it was a great thing to develop me, as well as just stepping into those arenas with other people that were whether from New York, from Philly, from Maryland, from DC. So yeah, it was good.
For sure.
Can you now talk to us about some of the people that helped you succeed and get to the next level? Did you already ask that?
Well, he talked about the coach.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's about people that helped you succeed and get you to the next level.
Yeah, tons of people. I mean, obviously it was teammates that you're always practicing against, but coaches, all the way from like Coach DeShulio. Coach DeShulio was like my first travel team basketball coach. And I talk about that all the time, that I think that's what made me fall in love with the idea of professional sports, because I would, do the travel team basketball with Coach DeShulio, and just like hanging out with your friends, staying at a hotel. It was like a big sleepover. And then, they would always order pizza for you. And it was like, my mom doesn't order pizza for me, So this was a great time to it was literally one big sleepover, and then you wake up the next day and you go play 3 games. And there was nothing better, right? And so, and you're on the road, you're in a strange foreign place, and you got to beat these kids that you never met before and that you'll never see again, until you come back. It was like Nanticoke, outside of Philly, in Philly. Where else did we go? We went to a few different places, but Newport. And so, that was Coach DeShulio, Coach Thompson, Coach Kreiser, Coach Litka, Giovino. I'm going to leave so many people out. There's so many people that help me, and it's kind of, and then obviously, you got guys that we talked about like yesterday, Coach Getz, that was a motivator. So, I mean, there's tons of people that I would just be doing everybody a disservice,
Yeah. Can you give Can you give any advice to football players now at Lebanon and how to get to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of things that you can do, and I think one thing I talked about Coach Getz yesterday was mindset and attitude was something that he reinforced a lot of times. Without ever even saying the words, it was more how he approached life and just approached conversations in general with people who had goals or that were on the team and wanted to win ball games, but. I'd have to echo that in mindset and attitude. Like when you talk about, when I was talking about how I approach competition, I think some of my friends, I hung out with a kid named Jay Torres a lot, right? And Jay Torres was always playing, basketball at like 6th Street Playground. He lived right next to it.
Yeah.
He was always, playing, either two-hand touch or tackle football. And I was always hanging out with him. He was a little bit older than me, right? The girls liked him, so it's like maybe I could hang out with some of the girls that Jay doesn't like, so that was the, I would always be playing pickup basketball with him, and or even Madden. I would be playing Madden.
Yeah.
And I would get pissed off every time I would lose, like irate, like I would, Now I'm not promoting the idea of breaking your PlayStation controller, but I always felt that if I were going to go to the next level, then I shouldn't be losing here.
Yeah.
Right. If I'm losing here, then that means that when I get out there, wherever there is, they're going to be whooping my ass.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Sorry. Pardon my French. And so I always had that mindset, now whether that was fair to my teammates or not, it's almost like I didn't care, right? I didn't care because like I had a trajectory of development that I wanted to see myself on, and that I know that if I go travel somewhere and play somewhere, that I have to know that I can at least handle my business here in the county, right? Because you'll see a lot of times, especially with the way the internet is now, is that you have access to all these photos and videos from people elsewhere. And then, you get this concept or idea that you're on a certain level because you have access to posting your stuff, or you have access to other people's stuff. But like if you can't, be competitive locally, well then how can you go outside of here and consider yourself being competitive? So I just always had that in my mindset, was I needed to be in the top percentage of anything that I attempt to do, whether that's literally playing a video game, playing pickup basketball, or organized sports. So, that was my mindset.
Did you do any spring sports in high school? Or?
Yeah, I eventually did shot put. So Coach Watt became my strength coach and shot put coach, which really helped me in my strength and conditioning, just because, I could work double time with him, right, with strength and conditioning and then also throwing. So, so I ended up doing that. I actually had this, I think I still have the school record in shot put. So I thought, one of these young kids was going to, I think they took my lifting records, but yeah, I might have one left. So, but yeah, I mean, that's one sport that I wish I would have done more of. I wish I would have started earlier, because I think I could have done even better in state. I think I got 5th in state. I'm not sure if I won districts at all. I think I won districts once, but then I was competing against Ryan Whiting, who was from Central Dauphin, who was an Olympian, right? So it's not just to have him in the state, but to have him in your district. It was difficult to outbeat this guy that went on to be an Olympian.
Yeah. So can you talk to us a little bit about your career in the NFL?
Yeah. What do you want to know? There's tons of stuff there.
Like how much different was the competition in the NFL than like in college or high school?
Yeah, the competition, what changes, there's a massive change in pace from high school to college. And you're like, man, this is the game's so much faster. And then you go to pro and it gets even faster and you're like, wait a second here. But what you realize is that everybody knows their job.
Yeah.
Everybody realizes they have a job to do and they're not worried about what anybody else has to do. So it almost feels like a team of hired mercenaries, right? Where everybody's out to do their job because everybody has an individual contract, right? And the same thing in collegiately, you're starting to see contracts and stuff like that kind of happen more now, which I'm not sure that I enjoy because, but anyways, that's another conversation. But professionally, I think the way the game sped up was from everybody knowing and doing their job, right? And so they limited their scope. They put blinders on to things that didn't matter to them, and that's what allows you to have, first of all, discipline, but then second, your speed and your pace can pick up if you know you only have one of three things to do, and that's essentially what football became as a professional was doing so much tape and film study, and then you're studying the percentages of what this team or this player across from me will do based upon the formation that is shown. So if you see that they're coming out in a weak eye, right, which is a formation, right, it's like, oh, well, you start to see that 60% of the time they run power, right, weak side power, and they motion the back. It's like, okay, so if they motion the back from left to right, well, then the percentage goes up to 90% that they're going to run weak power. So if you see that, then all of a sudden it's like you see that because you studied it all week and then you play it. So it's kind of a form of like gambling where you're playing percentages. Then what can you do because you know that there's a 90% chance that they're going to run this play? You play that much faster because you're not thinking because you're playing the percentage. So, and I think that's what happened when I stepped into the professional realm is that everybody was doing that. Now there's some guys that get by on pure talent or athleticism. You got to be very, very talented and athletic to be able to do that, to not study the game. But I think that was the big difference is that everybody became a student and really studied. They were a pro.
What did you think of like the business part of the NFL and like contracts and things like that?
Yeah, I mean when you're considering the nature of the game, meaning the sports or football or anything else as an art, as a development of a man, it's a necessary evil, right? It becomes this thing where it disrupts the nature of the game. It disrupts your love, right? It disrupts this pureness that you felt that you had, right? I always said that, you get recruited on brotherhood, right? But you get cut or traded on bottom lines. And bottom lines is, a financial term, right? And so it comes down to finances at the end of the day. Whether you're outperforming your contract or underperforming your contract, guys have been moved simply because of financial needs of a franchise. And so, and that's unfortunate. But I mean, the thing is that if you want to get paid to play, well, then you have to recognize that, that a franchise is a franchise and they're not your buddies. So I think that's a hard part. The other hard part is that you step into a locker room with a bunch of guys that have this mindset or feeling that they're there to feed their family. And so then everybody kind of, starts, comparing contracts. It's like, well, this guy's getting paid this and I'm playing this. And you get some of that. But if you get a really good team or get a really good, group of guys together and you guys find commonalities outside of, being a hired mercenary to go there to Miami or elsewhere to play, but then I think you can kind of retain some of that nature of the game, that great, team feeling.
Yeah, and how was like your training schedule compared from the NFL, or no, compared from college to NFL? Like
college to the NFL. My training schedule. Well, your training schedule then becomes a part of, a paid series of events. Right? So there's some things you don't have to show up for, but they're definitely writing down if you're not there. Right? Where they say it's voluntary. And then, but collegiately, there's never an outline of anything where it's like, this is a paid period, this is unpaid, this is required or not required. If the team is asking you to do something collegiately, you go, right? And it's the same thing in high school, right? Where it's like, if the team's asking you to do something, you go, right? Now, professionally with workouts and training, then there may be a specific style of training or weight room coach, and that's where it gets tricky because some guys come from a collegiate program where they didn't do that, right? Powerlifting versus machines, or high intensity versus some other type of form of training, super hypertrophy versus this or that, and so then you have like negotiations that happen where certain players aren't doing the same training program. And guys are like, well, why is he doing this? Well, we have to do that. And then that's where it's like having leverage, right? Especially whether you're a first-round pick or a big free agent signing where you're getting paid a lot, you end up having more leverage to start to craft your own training. Now, you don't always want to do that because then you're separating yourself from the group. People start calling you, oh, he's a special boy. He's different. And he thinks he's different than all of us. But at the same time, you have to protect your asset, which is your body. So there's all a bunch of different nuances that go into that. But I didn't. When I got to Miami, it was a lifting style that I wasn't doing at Penn State, and so I didn't necessarily acclimate to it very easily or quickly. There were some movements with my hip and my back that I had left over from injuries that I'm like, I can't do that. And so then it got adjusted. But yeah, there's a bunch of nuances with that.
So, what made you, after your NFL career, want to switch to racing and then making your docuseries?
Well, after football, it was probably like my last year with the Jaguars that, I got injured a lot. I was living on the beach. And when you're living on the beach, driving, 30 minutes home from the stadium, and you just see the waves crashing in, and you literally get to put your feet in the sand. You have a lot of time to think, and then sometimes that can be a bad thing in terms of an athletic career, because especially when you're injured, if you start thinking too much, well, then you start thinking of what else could I be doing? What else should I be doing? And when you start having those thoughts pretty consistently, then your mind starts to wander, and that slows you down sometimes as an athlete, because you're not in it. And so that year, I put a lot of thought into what else could and should I be doing, right? Especially the word should. I felt like I should be doing something different or investing in it. And at the time, I dated a woman who was a local artist, and we started having a lot of great conversations just about art, expression, and what football allowed me to express for a long time since I was 7. And what I wanted to express, coming into my 30s. It felt like I wanted to express something different. And so from that, when I was done in 2017, I basically took about 5 years to re-educate myself. So I didn't go back to school right away or anything like that, but I picked up tons of books. I started listening to all different types of collegiate and university lectures. I was writing more. I was sketching. I was drawing. I was painting. I took a writing class in Paris for a summer. I went out to LA and I was doing some writing consulting for an HBO show. So I was trying a bunch of different things. I was moving around and re-educating myself in the process. And so that led me to, all this writing and stuff that I was doing. I had a bunch of thoughts about the concept of CTE and neurocognitive decline. And so I think a lot of people end up reacting in a way where they're worried about that, but what ended up happening throughout my research is that I found out that it actually isn't as substantial as people would like to think. And I just got a text from 2 people that were producers on that project, and the doctors that I was essentially calling out are now changing their tune about CTE. So if you watch the series, and if anybody is actually interested in that concept, you look up some of the stuff that they're saying, that for about 10, 12 years, they were going out publicly saying that CTE is this horrible, rampant disease. Well, now, I literally have a picture here from the presentation from Bob Stern that is now saying that he is no longer worried about concepts like CTE. This is a picture from this is his disclosure page of his presentation. If you see here, I'm not very concerned about concussions when it comes to later life cognitive and neuropsychiatric impairments or neurodegenerative disease, including chronic traumatic encephalopathy. This is a guy that campaigned for 12 years saying that it was going to eat football players' brains.
Wow.
So don't get me started on that because I get all excited. But that's why I wanted to do it, is because there was a guy out there in the world, there was multiple scientists from Boston University that were saying that anybody who played football a certain amount of time, I'm thinking me, right, who's over a certain weight, especially linemen, because they're hitting repetitively, I'm thinking, oh, me. So there was a period of about, 4 months where I thought I was destined to go crazy. And so then I started doing all this research, and I find out that I wasn't destined to go crazy. But there's football players out there that believe this. That's not good. There were high school and collegiate players killing themselves in the name of thinking that they had CTE. That's wrong. Right? And they thought they were doing something good. And I said to them, I think what you're doing is you're scaring people in the eventual promotion of a drug that you're trying to create. I don't think that's cool. So that's what made me want to do that. And that helped me re-educate myself because I started reading very difficult texts that I never had to for football. And then with racing, you can tell I had my coffee today. With racing, I was on the way here and I saw, you ever see those old folks playing pickleball? Right? Where it's like, this is my version of pickleball, right? It's like, why do these old folks go play pickleball, right? Because it keeps them healthy, it keeps them active. They're probably former athletes, and it's a little bit less wear and tear on the joints. Well, racing is a very difficult sport, and it's asking something different of me. It's asking for a hyper concentration that doesn't, where I don't have to run through a wall or another man, right? And for me to be successful. It asks for concentration. It asks different things economically for me to understand economics a little bit better because it does cost money to play this game a different way. I'm paying to be a part of a professional system as opposed to being paid to playing football. And it's taught me so much. So I'm racing because I think it's a great teaching tool and development. It's helping me develop as a man, just as football or basketball helps young men develop. So there's some different understandings that I'm coming to find out about myself, the world, economics, all through this sport. And I think it's a great discipline.
What are your favorite moments from racing, the NFL, college, or high school?
What are my favorite moments from any of those? There's always one moment that sticks out. It's actually pre-high school. I won with R&K Subs as our local sponsor, the 12-year-old Biddy Basketball Championship. And I just remember when I won that at the high school, they had, the lower rims connected. And I screamed at the top of my lungs when we won that. We beat Charlie Norman. And we beat Charlie Norman. And we beat Charlie Norman. Where's the camera at? We beat Charlie Norman, and who else was on his team? I forget. But Charlie Norman was like my height. Like we were the same height, when we were like 12, right? So he was another, big guy on campus, and it was like we had to take him down. But I remember that was a great moment. Penn State football. Probably the game against Iowa my junior year was probably the best game of my career. And then the safety against Michigan that kind of turned things around and helped us win that game. Being drafted was great. But then professionally, this is the thing, is that I don't get to choose the team except for when I went to the Jags. We never made the playoffs, my whole professional career. So that's where you really feel like a pro. It's like you got to suck it up and get back out there, even though you're on a team that, sometimes, you see guys that don't care. But then racing, winning the amateur national championship last year in SCCA and GT2 was a pretty awesome feeling because my body isn't built for racing necessarily, so it felt like an accomplishment where nobody was coming to recruit me. There was no Giovinos coming to ask me to race. There was no Art Quijos from the University of Miami asking me to race. There was no Coach J coming to recruit me. I had to put myself there. right? I had to learn it. I had to understand what tools I needed and the people around me in order to help me get to that point, right?
Yeah.
So it felt like a different type of achievement than I've ever had in any sports.
Yeah.
Okay. And our last question: if you could say something about Lebanon High School and let the world know what it would be, what would you say?
Let the world know what it would be.
Yeah, like what would you say about Lebanon High School?
Well, I'd say to students that it's a massive opportunity. It's a massive opportunity. You just don't, you don't realize until you get older just how much time you have, how much formative time you have now to develop your interests, to develop your disciplines, to develop whatever it is in direction that you want to go in. And it's like, and you don't need to know. You just need to do, right? Right now, you're so young, you're so moldable, whether by yourself or by influence from teachers. But find people that, it's such an opportunity to find people that you want to emulate yourself after.
Yeah.
Whether that's a teacher down the hall or one of your heroes on Instagram, right? Whatever that is, it's take that, study that. Use the time now where you guys don't have mortgages, you guys don't have wives and children, you guys don't have responsibilities outside of developing yourselves.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say to students. But what I would say to the world or to the outside area is I feel like that's your job. That's not my job. I'm not here. I don't know. I wish I could answer that with some inspirational thing, but I think that's your job, is to inspire the rest of the world. You're in that position now.
Yeah, right.
And, that question should really be turned on you guys because, I think you guys are doing an awesome thing with this podcast and this conversation series. I've watched a few of them, by the way. You guys do a really good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's your opportunity to answer that question.
Yeah.
What do you guys want to say? Because it does feel like a different place from when I came here, right? And I think just even how much time and effort and money the people that are here, like Franklin and all the other teachers, but just also the construction and the way it's all been reshaped.
Yeah.
How much has been done for you guys, right? And utilize that, So I want to hear what you guys have to say. I want to hear what you guys have to tell the rest of the world. Because when I was here, I was, my fists were clenched every day to express that I'm valuable. I have worth. I want to prove myself through sports and through other avenues now. But yeah, I can't wait to see what you guys eventually express. As you develop through here and go, move on.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Jared Odrick, for coming with us. We'll see you next time on Lebanon at the Legends. And thank you, everyone, for watching.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yes, sir.